Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a couple of us tonight, and we might even have some rejects joining us a little bit later. But before we introduce this guest, somebody I've been wanting to get on for a minute, and I'm just sometimes booking people. I'm fucking horrible. But we finally got him on. Before we get to him, let's get Headless Giant. What is going on, my man? How are you? Please let everybody know what your deal is and where they can find you.
How you doing? You can find me at the Headless Giant on Twitter at the Headless Giant and on Instagram as well. And I do a show every Thursday on YouTube called Headless's Magical Mailbag, where you can send me your metaphysical slash paranormal slash weird dream experiences at the Headless Giant podcast at gmail.com. And also, we've got the trilogues coming up this Sunday with my boy Ethan Indigo and Ricardo. So check that out.
Nice, you're back at that. That's awesome. Good to hear that, sir. And my man Tyrone, what is going on?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, I'm ready for today, Brad. I'm ready to see what you're going to present for us because I love gaining knowledge. Everything you can find on me is on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. I'm also a bestseller to the book Journey Through the Origins of History that can be bought on Amazon. I appreciate it, Nick. And Headless and Ethan, let's get it going, y'all.
Thank you very much for joining, man. I always appreciate you here, sir. And we got Ethan Indigo. What is going on, my man?
Always honored to be here and talk about interesting topics. This one, of course, is a rabbit hole I think many of us have gone into. Blatant promotion. I got Tyrone's book. Really, really great if you're watching this show, and you're gonna like it. And blatant promotion of myself too. I'll go ahead and do it. So, I'm a writer. Can be found on occultrejectsinstitute.org, and yeah, honored to be here. Brad, thanks for bringing it.
Thank you very much, Ethan. I appreciate you joining us as always. Finally, to the guest, Brad from the Awaken podcast. Finally got you on, sir. Please let everybody know where they can find all your stuff, and maybe give people a little bit of an idea what your show's about, please.
First of all, thank you guys very much for having me. I appreciate this, man. And, coming on your show in front of podcasters I haven't met before, or content creators I haven't met before, and an audience that I'm not familiar with. Thank you very much for doing this. Our mutual friend, Ry Voss, introduced, or he told me about you. And then I saw your show with Prometheus Lens last week, and it was really awesome. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you guys again for having me. You guys can find me at theawakenpodcast.com. My show is called The Awaken Podcast. And I talk about, it's funny because when I initially started my show, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just started talking to people with paranormal, things that have happened and everything. But the first show I'd ever done was the Confessionals with Tony Merkel. And it was about the 33rd parallel. And it's like, where do you go from there? It's like you've already, kind of jumped the ranks and got to go on a big show that a lot of people are kind of lined up for. But so I didn't really know where to go with it. And then I just kind of started just talking to people. And now it's naturally leading towards spirituality, energy, frequency, vibrations, and trying to explain like where paranormal comes from and all of the mysteries of the earth. I mean, it's getting to the point where I'm actually going to places like Devil's Tower in Wyoming and different places just to
saw the videos of that. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, just to get an idea for these places myself, because there's so much hidden out there in the United States. There's so many temples and dolmens and these megalithic walls and stuff all over the United States, and nobody's kind of uncovering these things and talking about them. And so my goal now is to do that, is to be the guy that talks about these places that are hidden all around the United States. So, nice. But yeah, I talk about a little bit about everything, man. And all roads lead to Christ for me. So at pretty much every episode, it ends with me talking about Christ, which is funny because, again, I didn't start the show as a religious show at all. But when you get down the path of spirituality, paranormal, it always leads to spirituality. So.
Yeah, have you ever tried dowsing before? I know a lot of these sites have some sort of energy or frequency. Have you used that technique out?
So yeah, I have dowsed. I bought some dowsing rods, and it's called water witching. A lot of people use it to find water. I actually bought some with the intention of just to see if it worked. And I bought, it was like these copper ones, these ghost finding ones, you can buy online. And I didn't use them for a long time. In fact, I gave Tony Merkel a set of them as well. And again, I'd never used them, but I went out in my yard one day. We just built a house, and I tried using them because I saw this girl on Instagram who was like talking to them, and they were doing things, and I was like, oh, this is some weird stuff going on there. So I go out in my yard and just to see if I could find water with it, because I know where the pipes are buried, because again, we just built the house. And I walked across where the pipe is, and sure as crap, the dowsing rods crossed, so it said water's there. And so I tried it a couple more times. It worked. I got my son to try it, and interesting thing, and it worked for him as well. And the interesting thing is that I stood to the left of it, or I'm sorry, to the right of it, and then I said, well, let me see if this works, and let me see if I can talk to these things. And so I said, okay, where's the water at? And it literally pointed to the left where the water was. And I was like, whoa. My son was still with me, and he goes, oh, that's demonic, dude. It's like, I was like, oh yeah, it seems like it. And so I asked it, I said, is this bad energy? And it crossed and said yes, as if it was to say yes. According to the girl from Instagram, when it crosses, it means yes. And so as soon as it said it was bad energy, I literally just took him straight to the dump, dude. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I prayed. I closed that door basically, because like Vicky Joy Anderson says, you got to kind of close the doors behind you. If you open the door, you got to close it. So you got to make sure you pray it all out. So that's what I did. And I haven't messed with them since, because I feel like, what is it that's guiding those rods, that we can't see? That's what concerns me, is the unseen world that is around us. We all know that the watchers exist there in that unseen world. And that is the biggest concern for me. And that's probably where this conversation will go today, is portals, which is where I think throughout history, where these watchers have come to bring knowledge to humans. So yeah, I have tried dowsing, but I don't recommend it, because I feel like when you do stuff like that, you owe them, and they will try to come collect for, they'll send figures like the Hat Man to come collect on whatever, your soul or something. They're gonna get it back somehow in some way. So you have to be careful when you dabble in what I would consider to be necromancy and things like that, including DMT and all the ayahuasca and all this stuff. I've never tried it. I definitely want to. It seems awesome, but I'm also very cautious. Like, what are we accessing here? Is that the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Should we stay away from that? Is that what happened initially that caused God to flood the earth? So I'm very cautious, but hey, it was a good question, man. So
something that
by the way,
sorry,
ahead, Nick. By the way, I just feel like you can sense these places yourself. You don't need any kind of interaction with any kind of tools or anything. Because when I went to Devil's Tower, I was very shaky. Not because I was scared, but because like my energy didn't align with that energy that was there. And then I had a headache afterwards. I had to take some Tylenol on the way home. So yeah, I just and I had Freddie Silver on my show, who's been on Gaia TV and History Channel and stuff like that, and he told me that same thing. He said that when some of these places you'll go to and you'll feel elated, and then some of these places you go to you'll feel very like ill. It'll make you ill if you don't vibe with that place, whatever that place is. So sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. One thing that you happen to mention that something that really kind of I guess kind of why I even had you come on for the 33rd parallel and even Stargates. Something I even noticed that you said that you're into is kind of like frequencies and stuff like that. Even for myself, I've noticed, I call myself an occultist. I don't know what else, there's plenty of different names you can call yourself, something like that. But like for myself, I feel like that is something that if you are one of those types of people, you're going to end up getting into, I think, in that area at some point. And for me, it's for me when I started getting into that stuff more. It was almost like a science being able to prove magic to an extent, and I do think that that might be something that's like coming in the future. I think maybe shortly that certain things will start coming out as just like kind of weird science, but proving that this is how stuff actually happened and how it worked. And I don't exactly know where I was going with that. Well, one thing I did want to add, and it wasn't kind of like going kind of against what you were saying with the water dousing stuff, but I do think that because of that science that's behind some of that stuff, you know, even for myself, if I can't understand it, I'll sometimes just deem it as evil when there's actually science that can explain it. It says I don't understand it. You know, like sometimes when the mind comes across something it doesn't understand, it will lie to it just to make it feel better. And it's always real easy to just say, well, Satan, you know, blame an invisible bad guy that doesn't really exist, probably. So, you know, shit like that happens. But I guess like what I'm getting at is that I was impressed that I know like you're into that stuff because I do think it's important that I think that that's kind of like going towards the future, maybe in a way of showing science and spirituality or science and magic being mixed together. So I guess after all that, what was it that got you interested in the 33rd parallel?
Yeah, so I grew up on the 33rd parallel, but I didn't know it. And you know, I initially started doing, like, I'm a marketer and a web designer by trade. When I got out of the military, I was in the Air Force. And when I first got out, I kind of, you know, while I was in, I was sort of like an NPC, I guess you could say. I wasn't really paying attention to anything that was going on. And then I got out, and this was in, you know, right after, it was like 2011, something like that. Then I got really heavily into politics and following like who's running for president and all this stuff, you know. And I was going to school on the GI Bill and all this. And um, as I was going to school, I was also doing marketing and stuff. And I started to do these papers on different subjects. And I found a bunch of conspiracy, like, you know, I was like, well, that's weird. That's odd. This is odd. This is odd, whatever. And so it led me down a path of conspiracy. And then I was like, okay, there's something going on here. And then the conspiracy path led me to paranormal. And that's where I kind of discovered the 33rd parallel, was whenever I got heavily into like watching everything and consuming all types of everything concerning paranormal. I started seeing like, oh, this is there's some weird things happening on this place and this place and this place. And then in my mind, I'm kind of connecting it on a map. And I'm like, oh, that's generally on the same line, like Atlanta and Columbia, South Carolina, and Bishopville, South Carolina. I'm from South Carolina, by the way. Alabama and Texas and Sedona, Arizona, and Roswell, New Mexico, and all these things were basically in a straight line. I was like, okay, this is weird.
Yeah, right.
And so so then I looked at the map, and as I'm going across, I'm like, oh, Charleston, South Carolina, that's where I'm from as well. That connects on the 33rd parallel. And I'm like, okay, well, let me see if where I'm from is, what's that?
I was like, I got to see how far I am from that.
So I was like, okay, let me see how far I am from the 33rd parallel. And it was like, not only were we on it, but we were like right on it, like 33.33 repeating, right? It's like smack dab in the middle of the national forest. And I'm like, okay, so this is odd, right? It's like everywhere there's a military base, everywhere there's a national forest, there's some paranormal hotspots, right? So then that took me down all these different paths. I'm like, why are these national forests? Why do they exist? Who runs them? And it turns out that it's like the Department of Interior, but it used to be like Department of Energy, right? And it's like the Department of Energy, by the way, is probably the most important appointee position in the government, I think. Like, and they're usually the last ones that are picked, which is odd. But I think that's done intentionally to kind of minimize, like, oh, they're like the what's the person who gets picked last in the draft, NFL draft? They're like the forgotten man or whatever it is. I forgot the name of it. But
there's a phrase for that, right?
Right, yeah. But so anyways,
Well,
man, I just
the DOE has such a vital role to play, and people really don't understand it if they're outside of the conspiracy circles, you know? I mean,
Right.
we know that it's not just about nuclear energy, it's not just about these other factors. They have a lot of really interesting secret stuff going on through the Department of Energy.
Yeah, they definitely do. And the interesting thing is, like, why did they change it to Department of Interior and all this, or maybe Interior is not the word. Department. Yeah, it might be Interior. I don't remember what it was, but it's basically because Charleston, for example, is like it's on one of the biggest fault lines in the United States, and not far from that, a branch of that fault line runs right below the house I grew up at. And it just so happens also that the 33rd degree Freemason headquarters, the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, is in Charleston, right? And it's like the Supreme Court of Freemasonry there. So they basically make the laws and all this other stuff for the 33rd, or for the Freemasons. So yeah, I found out that a fault line kind of runs up right by my house too. And so again, all these little things kind of kept connecting for me. I'm like, okay, this is weird. This is weird. And
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
started asking people, have you ever had any experiences? And then it turns out that, like, basically everybody in my family has had interactions with UFOs or crazy orbs, or literally everybody except for me, or that I can remember. I've recently seen something that was strange, but I don't know if it was just a light, or I don't know what it was, but yeah, everybody's had some pretty strange encounters, including my grandma. So we lived in a double wide right beside my grandma down a dirt road in the middle of the woods. My grandma died, my granddad died, so my mom and dad got the house. But before my grandma and granddad died, my grandma used to say she would go back to feed the chickens in the back, that butted up near the woods, and she would claim that she could interact with Bigfoot. She would hoot and holler at it, and it would holler back and all this stuff. And my niece, in that same location, my niece said she saw like orbs, or she called them fairies, and she's 12 now, and she saw them when she was a little bit younger. My dad had a tree stand back there where he hunt, and something was banging all over his tree stand, and he looked out, there's nothing there, and all this other stuff. So there was like a weird encounter there. My mom has had recently, she called me one night, and I have it on my camera. She called me on FaceTime, and she's like, what the hell is this? It was like 1:30 in the morning. She went out to feed the same chickens, right? Because she has the house where my grandma that my grandma used to own. And there was a UFO in the sky. But a week later, so I was like, yeah, you need to get in. That's crazy. Get the hell in. Blah, blah. So like a week and a half later, she called me. She said, you wouldn't believe this, but I saw like this cloaked entity. She said, it's like a cloaked man, looks like, kind of like the Predator. And because she was talking to a neighbor of hers that her husband had just died, my dad had just died, so they were kind of talking in between yards, consoling each other, and they both saw it. And at the same time, my mom saw hundreds of orbs flying all around the backyard. So this location, where I was born and raised, has had a lot of paranormal activity. But I didn't really know any of this until I was watching a paranormal documentary or something, and I saw this thing called the National UFO Reporting Center, which is nationalUFOreportingcenter.org or something like that. Turns out
I'm sorry to interrupt. I actually post a report from that website every single day on my Twitter account. They actually have where you can you can see pictures, and they have videos. I post one every single day on my Twitter account. I call it just a UFO report, I guess. And it's funny that you say that.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, it's funny that Brad talks about that, because a lot of people don't know about that website. And it's really amazing.
I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Every single day I post a new one up, whether it's a picture or a video. But yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Brad.
That's cool, man.
Amazing that you know about that, bro.
Yeah, so I looked it up, and I mean, I was digging through the website, and I was people post drawings and pictures and all kind of crazy stuff, videos, and I looked up my hometown, and I saw that there was a video, and this was when my dad was alive, and I called him and I said, hey man, you ever seen these? Like, it was a video of like a mothership UFO, like 5 lights, and then little lights would peel out, and they would just go flying all over the place. I called my dad, and I was like, hey man, you ever seen anything like this? And he goes, oh yeah, that's from the fella at the head of the road. And I said, what do you mean? Like the head of our dirt road? And he goes, yeah, this guy goes out there. This guy goes out there every night with night vision goggles, and he films this stuff. And he said, yeah, they did a report on a newspaper and all that stuff. And he goes, I see shit like that in the sky all the time. And I said, well, wait a minute. I was like, who so where was he filming this video? And he goes, oh, it's right over our house. Like, so that UFO that he had filmed, that I'd seen the video that was on YouTube, was right over where my mom and dad lives. So that little area is a hot spot. Well, the funny thing
That's
is
pretty
that
cool.
yeah, that guy basically was would film it every night, and then military jets would come in and chase it off. He said there's always a connection to military again, and chasing these things away. But the National UFO Reporting Center, by the way, it's just one guy out of like Washington, and that runs the site. And if you call the FAA or some other government organization to report UFOs, they make you call, or they make you report it on the National UFO Reporting Center.org website. Because
they actually, it goes back years too, bro. Like I'm talking about all the
50s.
way in the back. I actually found on one of the things, and I'll bring it up if I can. There was a lady who reported a UFO, and then she went to her mother's house or grandmother's house or great grandmother's house. I can't remember which one. Found the news clipping of two people holding an alien thing. I'll bring it up real quick to show you guys what I'm talking about, but it's pretty interesting because, like I said, they have some really good gems on that website. I'll bring it up right now.
Awesome stuff on there. I read a pastor from my area reported something. He went into the woods and had this encounter with these crazy lights, and everything went silent and all this stuff. And it was like, there's some amazing stories on there just to read it. If you just want to fill some airtime or something with content.
Yo, right? Yo,
yeah.
Yep, I just brought it up. It was from 1953. If you could bring it, yeah, this one right here. This is this on this side. Like I posted every single day on Twitter, and you can see they give you a little description. I copy the whole thing, and they give you a little description of what they've seen and whatnot. You know, they sometimes put their names and cell phones in there. Sometimes they delete them or whatnot. But this was actually on that website, on that thing. So and I don't know if you guys can really see. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a little like a little small little. I wish I could make it bigger, but it's just a little small little alien type thing. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but you remember, I think it was in Texas where they had a UFO hit like one of those wooden windmills or something like that. I can't remember. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what the thing that happened, but it crashed somewhere in Texas, and they buried the alien in the cemetery, and they kept it unmarked for a while. But this is actually from there. She says, you know, this is
crashed into the well, right? It crashed into the well.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, something like that. I can't remember the specific, but yeah, something like that. But yeah, this is a picture right here from that, you know, the UFO Reporting Center. A lot of people don't know about it, but that's actually a great website if you want to. And I challenge everybody that's in here, go to that website, go to your hometown, and they'll break it down, you know, the city, date, time, and all this other stuff. And they even have a world map, a world like Google, where they show you where all the hot spots are. If you actually look at all the hot spots are in the main two big hot spots are in two places, the Americas and Europe and UK, in that area. You can see where it's a lot of red dots at. They have it like linked up with red and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, it's pretty amazing. They have a lot of good stuff on there. But I'm sorry, Brad. I just had to bring that up, bro.
All right.
Sorry, I was about to choke on a piece of ice. I was clearing my throat, and then you said it didn't just stop. And I was like, "Oh God, I gotta spit it out real quick." Yeah, I'm glad you do that, man. I'm glad you share stories from that, because I'm telling you, that reporting site is awesome. And again, the federal government makes people report to. I mean, they don't make them; they just say, "Man, we don't care about it. Just report it to this guy," because again, it's just like shedding it. Like they don't have any. You know, they're washing their hands of it, if you will, and they're like, well, it just goes to some crazy guy in Washington or whatever. It's NF National, it's NUFO.org or something like that. NUFORC.org or something like that.
Yeah, I'm about to bring up the link for them and post it on there for them real quick.
Nice, thank you, sir.
But apparently there's one for Bigfoot as well. I don't really get on that one that much, but there is one for Bigfoot as well.
That's awesome.
So. Yeah, you're crazy. Some crazy stuff, man. People will say things like, and there's another place where I'm from, around that same national forest. there's like a campsite, and there's a lot coming out of that place. There's a lot of somebody said there was like a UFO landed and a entity got out and it was glistening with diamonds and all this other stuff, and very interesting website to just browse through. And it's like normal people, because you can see it's just like normal people who report it. You know, they type it out and everything, or they write it out or sketch it out or whatever. So
Now,
yeah, go check it out.
Brad, you're bringing up a lot of associations, and I think this goes into your main presentation on the number 33 and the 33rd parallel. I want to know what the number means to you.
I don't know, man. I really don't. I see it everywhere. It must have some kind of power to it. But what I think is going on is that the number, there's a bunch of different avenues. Obviously, Christ died when he was 33. There's a whole bunch of connections there spiritually. But one of the biggest things for me that I always look at is whenever something is done, like a war is started or an assassination or anything like that, the number 33 is always involved, right?
Right.
And the reason I think that is because the fallen angels, there was a third of angels that fell to earth. So I think that people who worship these fallen angels are doing this as an homage to the 33, to the 33% of angels that fell to earth. And it's funny, man, because like you see it in everything. It's like 33,000 emails were deleted, and they want Ukraine to become the 33rd member of NATO. And I remember seeing Mike Pence doing this thing with Tucker Carlson one time, and Mike Pence was like, we need to get 33 tanks to Ukraine, and it's like it's always the number 33, and the thing that happened in 2020, it started on 3/11. And so I think a lot of this stuff, Kennedy was assassinated on the triple overpass on the 33rd parallel in Dallas. Marilyn Monroe assassinated on the 33rd parallel as well. Kobe Bryant. So there's some strange things that happen, and it always seems to be in the name of 33 somehow, right?
Oh,
and so
yeah.
what I
Well,
think
numerically, three repeating, right? This third part is like the infinite part. So if you've got a third of something, that would be 3 repeating on to infinity. So it's like you've got the picture of the Trinity and infinity together in the same number, right? So there's this kind of like infinity of the third, which represents a part of the whole. So to me, it's like they're making sort of a statement about infinity and power when they're using that number over and over again.
Well, I think that they get technology and information, advancements in technology, medicines, scientific discovery, all these other different different types of metal and all these different things. I think that people who are working in the government, I think there's 2 factions of the government. I think that there is a government that's working to keep these things from coming out of portals. Like I said, they're chasing them off with the military jets. And then there's a faction that I think is getting information from them. And when they get that information, they owe them. And so they have to do these things in the number 33, like Afghanistan, Kabul, Afghanistan, Baghdad, Iraq, all these places, Damascus, Syria, all of them are on the 33rd parallel. The Temple Mount in Israel is on the 33rd parallel. You keep going across, man. It's like every war, just about as recent in modern times, has been 33rd parallel. Even the bombs that were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima was on the 33rd parallel. And Roswell, New Mexico, right? The crashes in 1947. Roswell, New Mexico is on the 33rd parallel, but a lot of people don't even know that the 509th Bombardment Group was headquartered at Roswell, and they were the ones who were training at White Sands, and they were also the ones that were dropping all the nuclear bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So there's a connection to atomic bombs being dropped on the 33rd parallel, and I can get into that in a little bit. There's a book by a guy named Bruce Cathy, who wrote a book called The Harmonic 33. And harmonic 33 to him is the resonant frequency of Earth, right? And only time that an atomic bomb can go off is when the resonant frequency of Earth meets the resonant frequency of the sun. And it only happens at certain times of the year, certain times of the day, things like that. And he come up with a mathematical equation and pretty much could pinpoint it every single time. So there's a lot to unpack with all of that stuff. And then you start again making connections to, you get into the spirituality stuff. You get into with the fallen angels. You get into the Christ stuff. I mean, there's even a math equation that's the number 33 is the hardest math equation to solve or something like that. And so it's like almost impossible to solve this one equation. I can't remember what it's called, but the number 33 is basically impossible to solve in some kind of mathematic terms. So you guys have to look that
Now
up.
say the location of Roswell brings to light your point about the DOE, right? And that kind of they're having to do with unidentified objects and also the whole nuclear experiment, right? And it all has the same kind of secrecy levels. And when you talk about the 33 angels, it reminds me of the remainder would be the 77, of course, in the 7 in heaven, and that being a more holy relationship or positive. And you just mentioned the math problem of 33. Rarely do we see 3s and 7s. Maybe not rarely. I guess with numbers, it's just as likely as any other time. But it seems of significance when we get 7s in a row and also 3s in a row. I have a funny little equation here from biblical numerology, the 144,000, excuse me, divided by 108, a very special mathematical and spiritual number, equals 1333. So 1333.33333 ad infinitum. So I just thought that was interesting to share.
Yeah, it is. And so what I think you're describing and what I think a lot of these things is about is these things called harmonics. And I just mentioned it with Bruce Cathy, the harmonic 33. And harmonic is just a frequency or like a numerical pattern that is a multiple of a fundamental frequency, right? So like 100 hertz tone, its multiple would be 200 hertz and 300 hertz. So things can resonate on those different hertz. Like if you had 100, 200, 300, those are resonant frequencies. Those are resonant harmonics. And so like the mathematics is a real big part of this, right? It's like we just don't know the code. We don't know what it all means. But it has something. You think about like music and music notes is like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da, right? It's like do, re, mi, fa, sol. Those are resonant frequencies of each other. And that's what I was just mentioning with the sun and the earth. Those harmonics have to line up in order for the atomic bomb to go boom, bigger boom, right? They can go boom on their own, but when they hit that energy, so what it is it's the earth is sort of dormant during the day or during the night. It kind of sleeps. There's magma that's in the earth, right? That's like, and magma is made up of magnetite, which is iron rich minerals. And it just is kind of dormant. It's a magnetic energy. So earth is a big magnet. It's a magnetic energy. When the sun comes along and heats it up, that magma becomes a magnet by itself can't create an electrical current, and unless it's induced, unless it's moving. So when the sun comes in, it heats up that magnet, it makes it magma, and it makes it active, and it creates these telluric currents, these electric energies that flow beneath the Earth's surface. Well, that's why there's always, and I haven't got to this, but volcanoes are always involved. There's always volcanoes nearby, or extinct volcanoes, or streams, or faults, or fissures, and things like that, because these electric currents, when they're induced like that, when the sun induces them, they flow out of the earth. As the sun goes away, those currents go away. So there's a dusk and a dawn time where it's very critical for these entities to come into our reality. It's the moment where the
Liminal.
sun, yes, the liminal spaces, right?
The liminal space.
Thank you. I was looking for that word and I didn't want to fumble it. So thank you for saying that. It's the liminal space, right? It's like, and by the way, that's why the occult symbol of a rabbit, because rabbits are crepuscular, right? And so they come out at dusk and dawn as well to feed. And so that's why you get a lot of like rabbit hole stuff and white rabbit, don't follow the right white rabbit and all that stuff. But so, yeah, I think that, we've been tricked in history. We've been tricked into creating portals. We've been like our ancestors were just kind of hanging out, minding their business, and all of a sudden these things come in through these these geomagnetic hotspots of energy, and once they come in, they kind of trick people into making them think that they're angels of light or they're loved ones, right? So they might say, Nick, man, I'm your granddad. I used to take you fishing on the weekends, and or your grandma cooked your favorite blueberry pie or whatever.
Yeah, tells you some story that was like kind of correct, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it'll tell you something because they're watchers, they're egregores. That means that they are thought forms, they're energy, that they're dispersed energy. And Gregory is what the book of Enoch, Enoch used in the book of Enoch. So they're just watchers. They can see us, but we can't see them because we live in this little tiny sliver of electromagnetic energy called visible light, and everything else outside of that is paranormal. I mean, it's what we call paranormal, but we live in this little sliver of light that's like 0.0035% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So we live in this 0.0035%. That means that 99.965% of the world around us is spiritual world. So we're really the paranormal ones in this. If you want to look at it, we're very alien to the rest of the spiritual world around us, and that's why these things want to get into this this vibration of energy that we're in. We're vibrating at a perfect energy of light. So, what's that?
Brad, think about this. It's not just about the light, because think about how much more a dog can smell than a human can. And think about how much more a fox can hear than a human can. And so we're talking about entire experiences so far outside of our imagination that other animals are experiencing right now. The mantis shrimp can see so many more colors than humans are even capable of thinking about. So, I mean, yeah, there's this huge realm outside of it. I found this interesting reference. Have you read the book by Bruce Cathy, a New Zealand airline pilot, who talks about the world grid system? He talks about this 33 world grid system. Did you want to go into that?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about with Bruce Cathy in Harmonic 33. That was the book. That was his initial book that he wrote, was about how these harmonics play a role, everything I was just talking about. And so Bruce Cathy was a New Zealand pilot, and he didn't really believe in paranormal or anything like that. But then he saw his first encounter. First thing he saw was an underwater submergible object, a USO. And he was like, well, that's a weird light. What is this? And then he kind of got with other friends of his, other pilots, and he's like, hey, have you guys seen it? And so they were like, yeah, we saw something here. And so he started sort of mapping things or charting things on a map. And he saw that they were running in a straight line. And then he became obsessed. He's like, okay, well, this is some weird paranormal type of stuff happening on this straight line. I wonder if it's a bigger system. I mean, a bigger grid. And he basically obsessed with it. He's just a normal guy. He wasn't like a mathematician or anything like that, but he obsessed over it for like 50 years and started to determine that basically the Earth everything is measured off of nautical miles instead of the miles that so everything is off. He figured out everything. He's like, something's off. And then he started adding nautical miles because he's a pilot. And then it all like connected the whole grid. And he basically could figure out where every next paranormal thing was going to happen. There's this thing called the Eltonin antenna. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Eltonin antenna, which is off the coast of Siberia. Allegedly, it's this antenna that's buried 3,000 feet deep. And so he was discovering more antennas around the world based off of this grid system. And he would make bets with like the New Zealand president of when the next atomic bomb test was going to happen, and all these different things. And basically he started getting followed by men in black from the United States, and he was being courted by CIA and all this other stuff. And he bravely continued to write books and do all this this incredible work, but he was harassed for the entire 50 years basically to not give up these secrets and all this other stuff. So but what he determined, what he started seeing was like, okay, the grid exists. And so then he started looking at craters, and he was like, okay, these craters, like the Barringer crater in Arizona is on the 33rd parallel as well. And it's a perfect circle. And he's like, all these craters around the world are perfect circles. Like, how are they perfect circles if they're flying in from outer space at an angle, right? Instead of straight down? It doesn't make any sense. And so what he determined was that maybe the electrical grid, a cataclysm blew up the electrical grid. So he thought that this electrical grid, and I think he's right, is like a subway system for UFOs. I think he's 100% right. It's electromagnetic energy that's coming out. What I just talked about, telluric currents. It's electrical currents that are coming out. And if these things are magnetic, and they're metallic and magnetic, then they can just kind of move around. You ever seen, how when you move a magnet, it does these like weird little jolts? That's kind of what a UFO does. Is these weird little sharp turns and things like that. And so basically he was right on with that. But he thinks it was a cataclysm that caused it. I think that the US government was blowing up this grid. They were dropping nuclear bombs on this grid to blow it up. And I think that these UFOs are working to repair that now. Like whenever they come into this reality, they're trying to like repair this grid system. So just like the UFOs that are over in my mom and dad's house, I think, remember I told you they always look like they're doing something. They always look busy. They don't always, they're not just sitting still and hanging out and smoking cigarettes, and not that I know of at least, but they look like they're just flying around, collecting things, abducting people, and what I think is happening is they are doing all that. And then they're being helped by some factions of the government in these deep underground military bases, which I think is a real thing. And
well, do you believe there's some type of parasitism associated with sightings and these events having to do with these things? It's like they want you to see it, right? They're collecting something from the perception or the fear that they generate.
I think there's something to the energy that they're creating for sure. Like they're trying to generate fear with some people, but I think that they're trying to create hybrids to inhabit this earth. Because like I said, if we live in this perfect, think about it, man, we live in this perfect temperature, this perfect zone of temperature, right? Like if we're in this perfect vibration of warmth and everything, then that means that like hell and heaven, hell is extremely cold. Right. That means if it's slow vibration, that means it's extremely cold. And in fact,
you know what? I haven't heard anybody else put that like that. And I say the same thing, because if hell was supposed to be hot, you would think it would be an indication of the sun. But the God of the Bible, God in the Bible is known as a sun god. Some of them at least, because there's different ones in the Bible, of course. Yeah, light, exactly. So you would depict that and visualize that as being heat. When evil is in the darkness, when there's no light, darkness automatically shows that it's cold, right? And see, and that's, you on to something, Brad. You on to something, because a lot of people don't think like that. And it made me wonder, why do people associate hell with being hot, when in reality it was probably more than likely cold, just because of the simple fact that hell is in darkness.
Well, even if something is very cold, it still burns, right? It's like,
well, it does, exactly, and that's probably the missing representations. Because if you put your hands in snow, you can get frostbite, and it feels. As some people say, it feels like it's burning. Right. So yeah. My bad.
In Dante's Inferno, the lowest level of hell was frozen. It was completely frozen. And also, if you look at where the origin of the word hell, it was a Teutonic goddess of the underworld in a frozen place, right? So all of these different indicators point to hell as being a very, very cold thing.
The serpents are always like the Hopi build tunnels that go down into the earth so they can try to get close to the serpent god, right? And it's like there's all these things that point to the cold as well. Not just so the sun is a representation of light, or God's light is you can look at the sun. I say that I don't know. I'm not even how sure I am of this, but if you look at God's light, because everywhere in the Bible it says God is light, it says it 1,000 times. Like, how can you interpret it as anything else other than, okay, God is light? Because this is what the Bible says over and over. And if you look at the sun, what I think the ionosphere is above us is a prism, and I have a prism right here in my hand. And I think that prism, when God's light, what happens when you shine white light through a prism? It refracts into the colors, right? So if God's light is the sun, and it shines through the firmament, which is the ionosphere above us, which is plasma, then those colors are refracted. We're light beings. We're refracted beings. That's what we are. We're HUE, color beings. And the man part means manifestation. So we're color beings that create. And the Bible says this. The Bible says we are created in God's image. And if God is the creator, then we have the ability to create too. And that is true, because look around us. I mean, we're the only beings on this planet that can create the things that we have. We got cameras and cell phones and desks and houses and all this other stuff. You don't see, tigers building houses and all this other stuff. So I'm sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's
all. But yeah, I think we're extremely special. And I think that these things want to get where we are because they're cold. It's miserable. They're disembodied. And so if they're constantly watching us and we're having sex and smoking cigarettes and drinking beer and living life and, swimming in the lakes and having a good time and enjoying life, they want to get here, and I think that they can't because they're disembodied. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've heard it put before that we're the highest level of hell and the lowest level of heaven. And so if you're thinking about it from that perspective, and then you're applying vibration to it, we're like that midpoint of vibrations. So it's not all the way cold and it's not all the way hot. It's right in that temperate zone. And if you think about the chances of that, it's almost incalculable that we would find that kind of zone to be living in,
Yeah. And again, it's a resonant frequency. Like, when we get sick, man, I think it's because we're just not resonating with some sort of a vibration. I think that there is dis-ease in the atoms within our body. Like, if our body is made of 7 octillion atoms, they're all vibrating together, to create to materialize us. And we interact with something that is not a resonant frequency. It kind of dislodges those atoms, and it causes disease. And so I think that even illness can be explained in terms of energy and frequency, because we are energy, we are light. Like I said, when and I did a video on this on YouTube, on Instagram. So if you've seen it, I apologize for repeating it. But at the nucleus of every atom, there's these things called quarks. And when these quarks get excited, they rub together and they create a vibration. That vibration creates a frequency, right? That frequency creates a quanta of light called a photon. And a lot of photons vibrating together is what creates matter. So we are matter. We're material, right? And so these things that are trying to get in, they're ethereal. So we're material, they're ethereal. And they what a quanta is the smallest particle that butts right up to that ethereal world. Excuse me. And so I think that if they can keep us in a low vibration of anxiety, fear, and all this other stuff, they can open these doorways to access our bodies in some way, and they can sort of inhabit our bodies. Have you ever seen someone who's high on drugs or possessed or whatever, and it looks like they don't know how to operate their body? I mean, you can see this in Kensington, Philadelphia, right? How these people are all slumped over and all this stuff. It's because these demons, these Nephilim, they don't know how to inhabit a human body. They haven't figured all that out yet. So I think that they're trying to create hybrids to come into this reality, to come into our world. But and I think that our government has an agreement with them, and allegedly they do with Dwight Eisenhower in 1954, called the Greada Agreement, where they would essentially allow these things to abduct people and create hybrids. And in exchange, we got technology and all this stuff, but they kept, basically these aliens kept doing it and all this stuff. So,
Well,
so they,
Brad, I think you really made your point on the vibrational level. If you
yeah,
think about the vibrational tones of what subconscious, self-doubt, subconscious, hatred, all this stuff is sort of building up as these different fields of energy.
yeah,
And based upon how they're treating other people, how they view themselves, they're almost kind of like bringing in these negative frequencies that harmonize with the same tones that they're producing. So unless
exactly.
you have a certain kind of purity of mind, you're almost doomed to this constant state of cyclical destruction.
And that's what happens when I grew up in a small town. That's what happens with people when they stay in this low, it's a low vibrational energy that they can't get out of. No matter, they're good people, they grew up good people, but the circumstances of the energy, that the field of energy around them keeps them in that resonant pattern. And it's almost like you'll never get out of it until you physically pick yourself up and leave and go somewhere else, and you start something new and you literally change the dial on your personal frequency to something else. It really feels
Well,
like that when you escape these places, so
it goes to the nature of what a portal is. It's a void. It's something that's not there. You think about the Einstein-Rosen bridge. It's something that doesn't exist within space. It's that 0 point. And essentially, everybody has that 0 point within themselves, but they get to choose what energy is flowing through that point through the power of thoughts and through the
yeah.
power of spiritual perception. And if you're on that low vibration, stuff starts coming through that 0 point, that is not what you want in your life.
Well, the 0 point, to use, I'll just piggyback off what you're saying. Like the 0 point is actually above us. It's a crack in the firmament, if you will. And so there's magnetic energies coming from the sun that interacts with the magnetic field. And there's these little points of energy. And I actually think that that's where lightning comes in. When you see lightning shooting down, lightning is plasma. And so what I think is happening is you're seeing electromagnetic waves hit the earth like an electromagnetic pulse and create these telluric currents that kind of spin up and then spin out. And again, when you're tricked into these, when our ancestors were tricked into building these stone temples and these passage mounds and these dolmens and all these other things, you think about everything that you see as the gateway to the gods and all this other stuff. Well, the reason they did that was because they literally thought that they could access loved ones. They thought that they were communicating with loved ones because their loved ones, Native Americans call them spirit lines, because they felt like their deceased ancestors were giving them knowledge on how to be better humans and all this other stuff. And really it was just trickster Nephilim that were just like tricking them into creating these stone circles, and like Stonehenge and Avebury and all these other places. And I think at some point, God had enough of it, because this is, we talk about fallen angels mating with the daughters of men and all this stuff. And the portals were these meeting spots. So this is where people came to get knowledge from the Nephilim, from the fallen angels, right? And God had enough of it, and then basically washed them all away in the flood. And he covered all these portal areas. And a lot of these places, man, it's so weird. Like Göbekli Tepe was buried. Like a lot of people don't know that it was intentionally buried. It wasn't like buried by a flood, but that was intentionally buried. Stonehenge was knocked down at some point. Somebody rebuilt it, or they rebuilt parts of it. So a lot of these places were intentionally destroyed. And I think that there are still things going on. Wars are created to intentionally destroy these portals as well. I think that there's an invisible war going on that we don't know about against these things, basically. And I think because again, every war that in the Middle East over the last 30 years has been on the 33rd parallel, which is the 33rd parallel is it's a ley line. It's just and a ley line is just an invisible path of energy. And
Well,
I think that's where the
there's
telluric
a
currents
certain
kind of spin. But
there is a certain type of trickster energy that is associated with these sites, especially along mound sites and everything else. Like they're throwing up images that are not real or not true, but I don't think that's actually the end of the story, right? Like you'll get a lot of trickster energy at these places, but I think the goal is to try and achieve some sort of initiation. A lot of these sites were around that idea, especially gods like Pan, right? So Pan represents panic, right? So being in the woods in the middle of the night induces this panic. And in being in that panic mode, you have to be able to move through it to understand the knowledge or the totality of the system. And I think far too many times people get hung up on this first stage, which is, hey, this is terrifying. The second stage is, how are you a hero? How do you face the danger? How do you get through that? And that's what I think a lot of people are missing out on, is because they end up running away instead of facing what should be obviously a test, because this liminal space, like you're talking about with the dawn and the dusk, this has everything to do with how they practice these pagan cultures. Is they looked for these signs and they understood what was a trick and what wasn't. This was the wisdom that was required to move through. But we don't have that anymore. These liminal events in our lives aren't based around the earth and the natural cycles. The natural cycles give you the indicators that allow you to become more human through these spiritual experiences.
Yeah, we don't have to access none of this stuff. We have all of the tools available that God gave us already, you know. But you know, when the earth lines up with the sun and creates, so basically what happens is the sun comes in and it heats up the atmosphere, right? Because all the ionosphere is just a soup of ions. That's all it is. And it comes in and it heats up the atmosphere, and it creates a noble gas. And typically the noble gas is blue, purple, red, the stuff we see in the sky. Blue, and they all signify a certain type of noble gas, which is like xenon or something like that, or you know, pick your noble gas. It just depends on where the area is at that it's electrifying, if you will. The sun basically electrifies the ionosphere. So if these things, in my opinion, these things exist in the ether, which is sort of outside of our perception, right? But we kind of exist in this plasma-like state. It's almost like an electromagnetic frequency is like the zipper of our reality, and we're kind of contained in this plasma. And when the sun comes out, it disperses this plasma. And when the sun goes away, those liminal spaces, when the sun starts to drift away, what happens is this plasma starts to reform. And this is the moment where these energies can attach themselves onto the ions and create these little things called complex plasmas. These little things called complex plasmas kind of flow around. You've seen the jellyfish UAP with Jeremy Corbell. That's what a complex plasma is. It's flying around. It's invisible. We can't see it. So what happens is this thing is looking for electrical currents to interact with so it can turn into a plasmoid, which is a plasmatoroid. And a toroid is a donut. It's a halo, basically, right? So then it gets into like, are we talking about, this is where, maybe this is why people think that angels have halos and all this other stuff, is because there's a guy named Winston Bostic who did a study on magnetic fields. He was doing a study on magnetic fields, and then he just started playing around with plasma, shooting plasma in these magnetic fields. And he started noticing that these things, it was creating little sparkles, little donuts. And so he was like, well, what in the world? So he started shooting a bunch of them at each other and doing all these different experiments. And he discovered that they were creating little orbs of light. And so he was basically discovering what I'm talking about. This is how these things come into our existence. This is how they come into our reality. They, so if they're flying around, they're complex plasma, they all intelligently collect together, and there's an entity that controls. There's like a smart. These things are non-linear. They're intelligent. They're just pure intelligence, which is why the government calls them non-human intelligence, because it's just intelligence. They're not human. It's just pure intelligence. And that's where these things exist at, is in this intelligent etheric world. So when they come into the complex plasma and then they hit a magnetic field or electric current, that's been created by like a stone circle. Because again, if those telluric currents are snaking around the earth, this is where you get serpents and stuff from. The idea of serpents and dragons, because the energy is snaking around. It's snaking around the earth. This is where you get the caduceus logo, right? For the medical career. This is where the idea for snakes come from, on that logo, because Arthur and Merlin and all these other wizards were using these magnetic portals as healing places and all this other stuff. So, but yeah, these things come in, they hit a magnetic field, they turn into a toroid. Multiple of them hit, they turn into a ball of light, and that ball of light just kind of flies around. It's a electromagnetic ball of light. They're orbs. People call them ball lightning or whatever you want to call them. That's all they are. They're orbs and ball lightning. And they fly around and they look for other ions to morph them into some sort of a cryptid or an alien or whatever. So that's why when you have a Yeti, right, in the snow, because this ball of energy connects to the deceased or the putrefied remains of animals that died in the snow. So you're going to have like what looks like a Yeti. It's same in the swamp. That's why these things smell terrible. That's why they look like different types of animals. That's why cryptids always have, Bigfoot always has a different look according to everybody, explains it in a different way. But what happens is this ball of energy is flying around. It hits a packet of putrefied ions and it just kind of forms into something real quick. And so this is how they come into our reality. It sounds kind of far-fetched, but I think this is exactly what's happening.
Well, we know that we have a lot of plasma activity that goes on around lunar graviton points, right? So they've got two 60-degree points coming out from the moon that are like null gravity spaces, right? And they've noticed, astronomers have noticed, that there's a extreme collection of plasma in those spaces that actually organizes a lot of cosmic dust. They can observe that, right? So that is actually impacting the plasma development on the planet. But we have plasma in ourselves, and it's actually relatable as a magnetic field that exists around the body, which would be this aura.
Yeah,
and so you're talking about two plasmas interacting here from the atmosphere and to our aura, and these ideas of maybe cosmic visions having something to do with that sort of space between these two energy fields.
Yeah, I mean, we're bioelectric beings, dude. Our hearts create toroids, our brains create toroids. We're literally balls of magnetic energy, because that's what I just said. We're 7 octillion atoms, and we have this bioluminescent glow to us that we can't see, and that's called the aura, or black body radiation, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think that these things, interact with us, man, and they affect that energy field in some way. You always hear this stuff like attracts like and all this stuff. It's true. Birds of a feather flock together, right? If you have a negative, if you're in a negative environment, if you think about it, if you're a negative person and you're creating negative vibrations off of yourself, it's being trapped in this ball of energy around you. And then like a magnet, you start attracting other negative things. That's why it seems like, when your car breaks down or whatever, all these bad things, your girlfriend breaks up with you or whatever, all these bad things start happening around the same time. It's because of your negative state of vibration. And they try to purposely keep us in that negative state, man. They want to, so, fear is this frequency of less than 18 hertz. Okay. Anything less than 18 hertz is fear. It's like a fear induced. Tigers growl at 4 hertz, for example. Love and authenticity is a vibration of like 528 hertz. So if you're vibrating at a high vibration, which is like Christ-like, right? Love and light and all this other stuff, you're vibrating too fast for these things to even attach themselves to you. But if you're vibrating at 4 hertz, at a low of fear, of anxiety, this thing can attach itself to you because it's a resonant frequency that's matched up to them.
Brad, I'm sorry. Don't mean to interrupt, but I was going to build upon what you had said about the crepuscular moments in the day, dusk and dawn. And wanted to insert was that dusk and dawn have the exact ratio of red, blue, and green light to turn on the pineal and turn it off. And so when you do see sunset and sunrise, your pineal is reactive at that point to either turn on or turn off. And one of the main things is that and I'm sure everybody here knows, the pineal sits suspended in cerebral spinal fluid. And it is thought that a lot of the proteins that exist in the cerebral spinal fluid are influenced by biochemical signals that are received from the body, out of the body, and so forth. And then it just like reinforces all of the activation, deactivation of the pineal. But one of the things that also that you had mentioned to build upon that as well is that not only does it tell you to turn on and turn off, but the cerebral spinal fluid and the pineal are tightly linked to esoteric concepts. Being aware of like, the God concept or anything outside of ourselves or the paranormal or anything like that. So I just wanted to build upon that.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Giant, you were just Headless Giant. You were just, I'm sorry. What's your first name again?
Headless Giant.
I was waiting for that. So I was like, let's see this one.
What you were saying about the dust, right? About the space dust. So that's what it is. They attach themselves to like space dust, and that's what we are. We have dust flying around us all the time as well. And if you look at dust, right, if you look at the different shapes of the dust, you will see platonic solids. It's usually like tic-tac shapes, squares. And what do we always see with paranormal or like with orbs? The inside of an orb, you'll see a square or you see a tic-tac shape or whatever. And that's because that's what these things have attached themselves to. They attach themselves to a speck of dust. Usually that dust is like shape of a grain of rice or a square, like I said, like a cube. And then it grows from there. And then it has all this energy field around it. So sorry, I didn't mean to just ignore what you said, El. I heard what you said. I would just, before I lost my thought on the platonic solids, I didn't want to forget to say that.
Right. No, it's like a static electric neural network. So if you can imagine static electricity in a zero-G environment, and it's connecting all these different grains of dust in magnetic fields, that's what this sort of plasma in outer space creating order really looks like. It's a static electric neural network. And changes shape regularly, and it has these changes within it that reflect the idea of consciousness.
You mentioned in space, there's these, I think what you were referring to is the Kordalutsky clouds. And these Kordalutsky clouds are these giant plasma cloud-like thing blobs in between Earth and the sun. And what they're discovering is that these things are nonlinear, which means you can't predict them. And so in short, they're supercomputers. And so when you start getting into like AI and all this stuff, this is where the idea of supercomputers come from, because linearity is like a typical program for linearity is if this, then that, and then that repeats. And you can kind of chart it going straight up. Well, nonlinear is chaotic. And actually, that's what an atom looks like. You see the electron doesn't just flow around the atom like a circle, right? Like a 2D model that we've seen in science class. It actually flows like
cloud.
It creates an electron cloud. It flows chaotically, and it's like all over the place. It looks like this is just going chaotically. And that is what essentially that's what we are too. We're chaotic, nonlinear beings. So that's why when you go to work every day and you're trapped in this fucking terrible 9-to-5 job where you got to look at a damn you screen and you got to listen to this, like you repeat it over and over. That's a trap, in my opinion, because our energy has been trapped into this field of something that you'll never get out of. And when you escape that, when you go and you create something on your own, because we are creators, then the world opens up around you and it feels like you are a true free being, no matter what you're doing. But that's because at our core, the electrons that make us up are nonlinear, they're chaotic. And so every moment is a new now. Every single second, every split second is a new now, and a different reality can occur any second. You create something, or you decide to do this, and you're going to shift to a new timeline, and then continue shifting to a new timeline based off of every single decision that you make. Doing this show shifted me to a different timeline. or whatever the case is. So so that's what nonlinearity is with these supercomputer plasma clouds, complex plasma clouds that are called the Kordylewski clouds. That's what's happening. That's what these things are. They're non-human intelligence. They're just pure intelligence, and they're chaotic. They're uncontrollable. That's why with these supercomputers, it just goes infinitely into the void, right? It's like you're accessing information that you didn't even know was possible because
Brad, speaking of which, I want to turn you on to this book right here. It's called The Fourth Phase of Water. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's talking about the same type of electromagnetic potentials that you get out of these, clouds of plasma that come through water, right? And
right.
think about how many times water and light go together in the Bible, right? It's always the water and the light. And so there's something to the ability for structuring water that really, speaks to the soul. And it's these two different things. So, for instance, in the book, he talks about the easy water, which are these like hexagons that form around an object within the water based off of electromagnetic potential. So on one side of this hexagon field, you've got one charge, and on the other, you've got a different charge. So it's actually creating charge within the water. And guess what? It's charged by photons from the sun. I mean, we're mostly water. If you put these ideas together, it just makes sense,
Well, that's what I think plasma is. I think plasma is like the electrolyte for the anode and the cathode electrodes, right? Like I saw Owen Benjamin at this at Bro Grove, right? We were having a beer together, and he asked me about that, and I had never thought of it. And I was like, oh, like he said, what do you think about the sun and the moon being electrodes? And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. And then it made sense. But it was like, oh, the cathode is where the ions flow from through the electrolyte fluid, which is the plasma that we exist in, and then the moon is the cathode or the anode, right? Or maybe I got it backwards. Anode is the sun, cathode is the moon. So it's interesting, yeah. But yeah, I think the same thing. I think water plasma is like a conduit. It's when the sun loses ions, it gets transferred through this electrolyte fluid, which is plasma, to the cathode. So it's like a battery. We're like in a big battery.
Water is still one of the most dominant, molecules in the entire universe. So there's something spiritual about that as well, because we're mostly water.
Dude, I'm sorry. By the way, I'm sorry. I know it's all scientific stuff. I'm sorry if it's getting a little out of hand.
No,
Dude. People are sleeping in the comments right now. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, science doesn't, every idea and theory that we have, science catches up with it later on in time.
Yeah.
Think about the first car that was created. I guarantee you somebody who was riding a horse was like, man, I wish I had something that could get me to my location a lot faster. And over time, and over generations and so on and so forth, things started coming together to create what we have as far as vehicles. So just because we don't have science today to prove that there's a way to hit portals and so on and so forth doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Science right now can't prove astral projection, but plenty of us have experienced astral projection, right? I've experienced it. I know that it's real to me, and anybody that tells me anything different, they're just telling me from their experience. You was mentioning the Bible. Everywhere in the Bible, you will see that everybody has their own experience, and meditation is used in there a lot. I know Ethan knows a lot about that because he wrote a great book about meditation. And when you meditate, you have your own experience, and you can, enter these portals or so-called stargates, whatever you want to call them, by your own movements of the rhythm of your frequency of your body, the breathing, and so on and so forth. Even what you eat helps with that. A lot of people say don't use fluoride because it'll calcify your pineal gland. Well, can science prove that? Well, they have seen calcified pineal glands, right? I know Japan right now either has created or is in the middle of creating one, is creating a pillow where it can record your dreams. So every night that you go to sleep, put your head on that pillow, You hook up a device to your head or something like that, and it records your dreams. And then you're able to watch those dreams like you would watch a television show. Now, a lot of us have been able to also participate in controlling our dreams, which is called lucid dreaming. Imagine what we could do with that in the movies, the creativity and so on and so forth that comes from that. A lot of people who invented things through a meditative state or a state of fasting or separating themselves from, the mass of the people. That's why people go on the mountains to pray and meditate. That's why people are stuck in their rooms for, hours on end. I actually have Chinese medicine balls right here where if I'm meditating, if I can control this and just focus on this over and over again, I'm able to write my articles better, come up with better ways of presenting my art for my YouTube channel, podcast, so on and so forth. The Akashic Records is another one a lot of people don't talk about. It's basically, an informational guide of our lives and our past lives. And sometimes in some ways you can read other people's Akashic records to understand what they've been through. And a lot of this stuff can't be proven by science as of right now because we don't have the technology out there. But there are scientists out there right now who are trying to create these things that have the open-mindedness, like all 4, 5, 6 of us that's in here, or maybe just one of us may not be open-minded, whatever the case may be. But those scientists are just like us, right? Those scientists are the individuals who say, okay, I can't prove it right now, right? But maybe 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years later, they can. Now, also, we got to keep in understanding that science won't be able to, prove somebody's astral projection unless the Japanese somehow is able to create that pillow that does that. That would be a great form of recording somebody's mind and visual ideas in their brain when they astral project. Because I know when I astral project, I know that I see things out there that's not supposed to be there. I was actually confirmed dead in Afghanistan when I was blown up, and I had an event that had something that seemed like a different portal to me. And then, that was my experience, right? But then a lot of people will say, because you mentioned drugs and alcohol and stuff like that, a lot of people are able to tap into these inner things, but they're always on drugs or they have some kind of mental issue. So guess what people would say? Oh, they don't want to believe that person because they have something mentally wrong. If I tell people my stories, the first thing they're going to just say is, all that dude was in Afghanistan, guy has his head blown up. You can't believe a word he says, right? That's what people will say because of the simple fact that it doesn't make sense to them. There's this Arabic proverb out there that I was reading. It's saying out there, it says, nobody actually wants to die. And if you really want to test that theory, throw yourself in the sea and see how much you fight to stay alive, right? Because it's not until that moment when you're in that hard situation when you're like, damn, is there a God? Damn, is there something greater than me? Damn, is there something out there that can help me? And then you have to look within yourself a lot of times to seek that information. But the problem is our narratives, our beliefs counter that because we've been systematically and, since families have taught us that there's only a certain belief. Not every family, but, most families, grew up Christian, Catholic, Muslim, and so on and so forth. So they believe that. And when they're introduced to new things, it goes against their beliefs and stuff like that. So they don't want to jive with it and whatnot. But, in reality, science is going to catch up with trying to figure out how these portals work. Astral projection is one of the biggest ones. I mean, you go to the Ba and the Ka in ancient Egypt, and it talks about how, part of your soul goes somewhere else, part of your soul stays here. And, the soul that stays here has to be equipped with all the stuff that you had when you was alive, right? And then your other soul is seeking a new life and so on and so forth. But you have that relationship with both of them. It's so weird how it is different for every culture, religion, and in ancient texts and stuff like that. But the point is that we have all been told since the beginning of writing, since people were able to write down their notes like a diary to say what they could and could not do. It always has been an idea that we were able to travel outside of our body. And there were things that was unseen and unknown to us that we can't interact unless we do certain rituals, prayers, and fasting and so on and so forth.
Well, what you're describing is metaphysics. It used to be that physics was metaphysics until the General Education Board came along in the early 1900s and basically got rid of the talk of anything metaphysical. And it would just be, that's where science was born, was in the early 1900s by the Rockefellers and the General Education Board. This is when Einstein came into existence and all this other stuff, right? They got rid of the word ether and they started using the word plasma instead. So when we talk about ether, which is the fifth element, and when we talk about plasma, which is the fourth state of matter, they're basically the same thing, right? And so they changed the language and they started calling it science instead of spirituality. And so it's the same, is literally the same thing, but they just have changed the language on things. Just like with Bruce Cathy, with his book, that he wrote, what he said, that the nautical miles thing, and also how we have, instead of 24 hours in the day, our biological clocks are 27 hours in a day. And so they take out one little thing from the equation and they get, and it just basically throws everything off. So they take out the talk of plasma, which they don't even talk about. I didn't learn about this in school, by the way. They take out the talk of ether, because if you start to learn about all this stuff, then you start to rediscover who you are and how powerful you are and how you can create, and you have the this ability to manifest things. And so again, man, with all these AIs and all this other stuff, everybody knows that news is all fake and nobody is all garbage now, right? Except for maybe a few older folks who are still watching it and stuff like that. But most people don't even, Colbert's leaving his show and all this other stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, they're just basically gushing money, but they've been gushing money for years. And the reason why they still exist is not to get the news across. It is literally to make you manifest reality in whatever way they want you to manifest reality. I believe, like with 2020 and stuff like that, when that happened, they tricked us. They tricked our mind into believing that we lost our taste buds and our sense of smell and all this stuff. I don't think that we actually did. I think that that's how powerful. And then once that started to wear off, once we started going, no, I don't believe this anymore, then it all started reversing. And then what did they do? They started saying, we never said this, or we never said that, or because they want, if they repeat it over and over enough, it becomes a vibration in our mind. Our vibrations in our minds is just like the vibrations that create us. So our vibrations, our thoughts are vibrations, our words are vibrations. Every time we say something, every time we think something, we can manifest things into reality. We have to be very careful with our words. The English language, I think, is a demonic trick. I think that our language was something else. I think we could speak telepathically, but I think the words we speak now is all magic. It's all black magic that's coming out of our mouths, because when we talk, when we say words, every vowel, A, B, C, D, etc., has a different, it creates a different vortices of energy, literally a vortices of energy that comes out. And that vortices of energy has this toroid of a magnetic field around it. And that magnetic field vibrates things into reality, vibrates things into existence. So we have to be very careful what we say, what we listen to, what we watch, what we, all of the above, because movies, that's why it seems like all these movies are predicting the future. If they say things over and over again, it becomes reality. That's what I think that a lot of these things do, because, how someone like CNN or whoever, I'm not picking on CNN, but whoever still exists with low viewership, like nobody watches it except for in airports and stuff like that, is because they just have to have it playing in the background. They have to have it going so you continue to hear it, and then it creates a vibration which manifests it into reality. So sorry, that was it.
It's funny. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me just say this real quick before I forget. I thought I had my mic on. Something that me and Lisa, I know for sure, came across. There was a few times where we kind of went a little off with the gematria. And there was a lot of times where we're like, what's really weird is that, like, sometimes when we run these things, you start seeing it matching other things that's going on at the same time. Like, like we might have been looking into something with true crime, but somehow it brings up Trump, Mar-a-Lago, COVID will be in there somewhere, a BLM or George Floyd or something. Like, it's like all these things were all happening around the same time. You'll see like matching certain things. And, I don't know how people look at gematria, if they take it serious or not. I don't know if but the numerical value is still being repeated, and it all seems to be going on at the same time. And I've wondered if there's something behind that to where all of that is like feeding each other. It's just constant. Same thing.
The numerical value for magic is 33 for simple gematria.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, the 33 again, all over again. I don't know. Just to interject again, when I came in, Tyrone was talking about the UFO crash in Texas. Thank you for shouting out Texas. And Tyrone, if I repeat what you said, but that it happened on the 33rd parallel there in Texas, the crash. And not only did it happen on the 33rd parallel, it's like 33 degrees, 03 asterisk, and then 03 double asterisk or whatever. So it's like repeating threes. And another interesting part of that location is where the super collider was going to be built by Waxahachie. And that is where the original CERN, or so to speak, was going to be built in that adjacent area. Not exactly 33, but I think it was 32 or something, but it was just south of that Aurora incident. And then one of the, I guess, interesting things is that, so it wasn't built there, but we did get somewhat of a particle collider, large hadron particle accelerator collider in Fermilab in Chicago, and the not the latitude but the longitude is 88. And so of course if you divide the 8.5, you have the threes mirroring each other, which I thought was very interesting because the guy who was named after actually worked with Oppenheimer at the atomic testing there in Los Alamos. But I believe Los Alamos, it was like north of that or something, northwest of Los Alamos, and it was on the 33, like near Truth and Consequences, if you drive through that area. And the other thing that Nick and I kind of found out was that the guy from The Doors, Jim Morrison, drove through there when he was 3 years old and had an experience with that at the 33 parallel at the age of 3, and then goes on to be, Jim Morrison. So definitely that has a lot of symbology. I wanted just to kind of reiterate all of that as well.
Some of people don't understand this. So I think that charismatic people are born on energy pathways, like superstars and stuff like that. Every single, if I name somebody, I'll just name a few people, and all of them are born on the 33rd parallel. It'll blow your mind. Bear Bryant, if you're a college football fan, he was born right next to Johnny Cash in the town over from Johnny Cash in a small town in Alabama. Both of them 33rd parallel. Hank Aaron, Hulk Hogan, Oprah, Kanye West, Marilyn Monroe. Literally, you go through the list of everybody who's a who's who in Hollywood or music. Almost always were born on some sort of an energy pathway, some sort of a ley line, including Michael Jackson, who was like born on, I believe, like the 42nd, which is another hot spot of like another parallel that's a hot spot. But most of them were born on, I mean, literally, dude, you could B.B. King and Jim Henson and, all these famous writers and, all these famous authors and all these famous, everybody seems to be the who's who of everybody. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, and everybody came from this same line. And so it's very interesting that there's an energy that comes out. Now, even the hometown I grew up in, you'd be surprised to find out that there's been almost 20, I said 10 before, but I think it's almost 20 NFL players come out of our hometown. And the chances of that are extremely rare. And we've also had people come from our area, like Charlemagne the God and all these other people that are from the same small little town region that I'm from. Literally, Charlemagne grew up like 10 minutes away from me. So it's a 33rd parallel as well. So there's something to that. There's something about people being born. Elvis was born on the 33rd parallel. And he, and he had many interactions. Yeah. What's that? Well, I was going to say too, there's other, and it's not, and the weird thing is that there's always multiple towns and multiple high schools and multiple regions where these super famous people come from. And I talked about this with Cosmic Peach before as well, where it seems very improbable, like Forrest Whitaker and Matthew McConaughey came from the same exact town. right? Or like just a couple people from the office went to high school together, and now they're going. They like Jim and Ryan from the office. They went to high school together, and Kevin and the Rididoo guy, whatever his name is, Andy. They both went to high school together as well, right? And it's like it's so weird how the energy. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like they're grown in these little hot spots or these little areas. And another thing that's weird, man, is like I went to Wyoming a couple weeks ago, right? Got all the way out, like it's 2,500 miles away from where I live in South Carolina. Get there, I get to a rodeo, and I'm leaving the rodeo, and I run into my neighbor, who is my neighbor from where I live now. And it's like, how does energies swear? Every time I go somewhere, I used to be stationed in Turkey when I was in the military. And I went to this place that was like in the middle of nowhere, is a beach, and ran into this girl that I grew up in my hometown. So it's like something about energies that they can either affect you positively or they can affect you negatively as well. There's been I in my hometown, in my area, I can't even describe how many people I've lost. I lost 4 of my best friends to freak different accidents and things. 4 of my best friends. That's like, like all these are like brothers I grew up with, and ex-girlfriends, and over. And it's just like this death, this dark cloud of death, of like nonstop people dying. And I want to say hundreds of people that I know personally that died young, that died from freak accidents, that died from car accidents, that died from falling off the roofs or getting electrocuted or whatever. So I think that these, just like with the portal locations, the energies can resonate different for people. They can either have this charismatic effect where you can kind of sort of become popular or famous or whatever. And they can also have this negative effect where it becomes like, very draining and, hurt, frequent. You don't resonate you don't resonate with it on a frequency level. So there's something to be said about all that, the gematria, the locations of the 33rd parallel. Like there's all kind of other spots that I didn't even mention that are on the 33rd parallel, like the Catalina Islands, Lookout Mountain, Sedona Vortex, the place where Travis Walton was abducted, which is the Sitgreaves National Forest in Arizona. The Goldstone Observatory, it's kind of like which is the Earth to Space Communication Center, which was featured on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That, by the way, they showed a bunch of 33 numbers on there as well on that movie, but that's sort of near the 33rd. It's like 34th or something like that. They got, the White Sands National Forest. That whole area is just loaded with like giants' footprints and all kind of other crazy things. Poverty Point, Louisiana, Greenville, Mississippi with the Winterville Mounds. You got Moundville, Alabama, which is obviously a bunch of mounds as well. So on and on, man. You can go across the nation. Disneyland in Anaheim, that's on the 33rd, and then there's Club 33, right? So the Bermuda Triangle is 33rd parallel, and all of these things, what they all have in common, I just mentioned with Bermuda Triangle. Bermuda Triangle, the island of Bermuda is a volcanic seamount, and so it's an extinct volcano. All of these energies, these telluric currents, come out of the Earth from volcanoes, faults, fissures. Anytime you can put a stone circle near flowing water in the mountains and create a portal. I don't recommend it because it's necromancy and it's against it in the Bible. But I was telling Doc from Prometheus Lens about that, and he was like, "Holy crap, dude! We had this crazy encounter, and it was by the water." Well, what does water create? Flowing water creates an electric current. That's why they when now it doesn't create it directly. There has to be some things involved. But like with turbines, for example, for dams, the water falls down and it turns the electromagnet. The electromagnet creates electricity. So whenever that electricity is flowing, that's when these things want to come into, and they want to hit these little areas and come into existence. So there's a lot to it, man.
The easy zones themselves, which form around everything that is, hydrophilic, actually create those, electrically charged fields. So there is a massive amount of electrical charge that happens. Have you ever seen the water test where they're dripping a drop through one, I think it's an anode, and then because the water is moving through these different fields of electromagnetic energy, you you can complete a spark gap just by drips of water. So there is an electrical potential from flowing water directly by itself, but it's even more so when you've got water being hit by the sun. So that's how it charges up even more.
Yep, I agree. So yeah, there's a lot to be said about all this stuff, man. I just think that the worship of serpents and all this stuff comes from the idea of energy that's flowing along the earth. That's where it all comes from. So all serpent everything, serpent deities, all this other stuff, that's where it comes from. That's why when we think of reptilians, that's why we think of like Nephilim and all this stuff, is because that's what they are. They're energy. It's this disembodied energy. And dude, with AI, man, again, what I was just telling you, how we manifest, not to take this into an AI conversation, but I just want to warn people that they created almost like a trinity for AI. They built the brain, or with this project Stargate project, they built the brain, these data centers, right? So humans programmed the AI, which is basically just if this then that language. And then we sourced it. We give it all of our data, all of our energy. So it's learning everything about us. So we're giving it information. We're teaching it how to be human. So then they build this big digital brain with this Stargate project, basically a neural network, right, that we're creating. And then the most important thing is the egregore that inhabits this digital body. We're creating that as well. So we can unplug from all this anytime we want. And what I say by we're creating this, an egregore is a thought form. Christmas can be an egregore, or Christmas is an egregore in a way. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day is an egregore. Anything that the collective consciousness comes together and creates an energy field of, whether it's positive or negative, is an egregore. And again, that egregore is always, it exists. There's an egregore around us all the time. Every time we yell, every time we fight with our family, whatever, we're creating these little egregores. Now, some of them, without the collective consciousness coming together to build it, they won't exist very long. They'll just kind of disperse. So when Peter Thiel and whoever else gets on TV and they talk about AI is going to be this and AI is going to be that, they're trying to get us to believe that that's going to happen. When they say stuff like we want it to be a digital god, they want us to believe that it's going to take over jobs and it's going to be a digital god and all this other stuff. They want us to say that. They want us to think that, because our thoughts create those egregores. And again, that's where the word Grigori comes from the watchers. They're the watchers. And so you see it on the back of the dollar bill, the all-seeing eye, that's a watcher. That's all that is, and that's what they want. They want a new world for the ages, which is what they put on the dollar bill as well. And it started in 1933 by the 32nd president, FDR, who also became technically the 33rd president because he gave himself a third term, right? So he technically became the 33rd president. But Truman was the, on paper, 33rd president. So there's a lot to unpack with all that, I know, but it's like, it takes us down a different rabbit hole, but there's a lot to the number. And by the way,
I think
FDR was a Freemason.
If you're going to look at FDR, you have to look at him as his impact on the next century, really. I mean, nobody had a bigger impact on the way people see the government and how it relates to the people than from the FDR era. Even today, after so many years he's been gone, those ideas are still recycling. So to downplay the fact that he was the 33rd president and he had such an impact, I think would be foolish. I mean, there's that resounding impact that he had, especially because he chose to go for a third term, that really does resound today. I mean, it's that same harmonic quality of the 33 as a number.
Well, he was the one who implemented the dollar bill. He was the one, and again, the eye above the pyramids, dolmens, stone circles, passage mounds, etc. they're all considered these, you go into them and you have these transformational experiences. You interact with the gods. They give you downloads of information and all this stuff. So there's an eye above the pyramid, and that should tell you exactly what I'm talking about with these portals, that they're just locations where people could go and interact with these fallen angels, essentially. And so that's what they are. They're watchers. They're fallen angels. They're disembodied spirits of the Nephilim now because of the flood. So yeah, I mean, that's and I think that I think that there is actively good, probably, maybe, I don't know, good people trying to, because I was in the Air Force, and everybody I served with, nobody was like that. Nobody was like, fighting on the side of evil, right? So I would have to imagine that there are people who are fighting on the side of good to try to close off these portal locations and prevent these things from coming in. So
it's all about reaction time. And I think programs like this, when people can really start to understand the significance of these numbers and what to do when you see them and how to react to them, it's going to change the reaction time, especially if they're in the military. They're going to say, hey, wait a second, they just gave me an order that has the number 33 in it. We should think about this for a second. What are they actually asking us to do? Very valuable in reducing the amount of harm that can come from, orders that may be coming from a malevolent source. Just my thoughts.
yes, very, very much so. Just think of, like, again, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, like that. Every 33 has a resonance as well, and it can have a negative resonance as well. So we have to be careful. We might be communicating with entities in the world that we can't see by using certain numbers and things like that, if it resonates on that frequency. And we talk, there's like I don't know much about it, I have to look into it more, but like the 444 hertz frequency versus 432 or whatever it is, all that stuff matters in a big way. So
well, they're gang signs, right? If you've got a guy who's the 33rd degree Mason, you're spray painting your gang sign on the government, right? So that's kind of what these 33s and all the media kind of represent. It's like, hey guys, stand down. We got this under control. It's only 33. Remember, we're it. So it's sort of like a tagging operation. They're just saying, hey, look, the 33 means we're in charge. You don't have to do anything. And so if that's what they're telling you in orders,
get 17 a lot too.
17, 33, these numbers indicate that there are different forces behind the scenes. I've seen the stories behind these 33 stories, and they have to do really creative things to get the math to add up to 33. But if they're that meticulous, that means they're very calculating. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think I think they are calculating. I think that they are very much so using Earth's energy grid still, with all their, again, the headquarters for the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemasonry is in Charleston. And it's like, I don't know if any of you guys are Freemasons or anything like that. I'm not disparaging you guys. I don't know how it works, but I got a feeling that it's not like, anytime you go in and you get with a bunch of men and it's in secret and you dress up funny and you do all these things. And I've heard a little bit about it. I heard that you have to sort of, have an out of body type of experience and all this stuff. So it's weird to me that people get together in these certain spots and do certain gestures and rituals and all this other stuff to transcend or something. I don't think you need to do any of that. I think that you just have the ability to do that right now. We were talking about before we started the show how Rye came on here, and how I also did a show with Rye, how you could do what is it called? Jesus, I forgot. What was the name of the thing again? Where you can see with your mind, kind of third eye spot.
Remote viewing.
Remote viewing. Yeah, I don't know.
I was looking that up earlier too, man. I don't know what
yeah, like we can do all that, but there's the energy field around us is sort of clouding that, and if we get into water and we get into nature, we can hear those thoughts and everything better. I mean, I'm sure everybody here has done it. You thought about somebody and all of a sudden they call. that kind of stuff, or you thought about somebody and they died or whatever. I think that we have that ability to
Shit,
telepathic.
just thinking about it and having getting it on your phone and seeing a goddamn advertisement. You
That's
know what
right.
I'm saying?
It's
That shit is
true,
freaky,
dude.
bro.
It's
That's
true.
freaky shit, bro. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. When you was mentioning the watchers and stuff like that, I was thinking in the back of my mind, is 24-hour surveillance helping the AI better their understanding of humans, because they
Yes.
get to see how humans move, talk, interact, their mannerisms and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
And it's all going into one location. At this point, that you're going to find something about you online that a lot of people won't believe, but could be 100% true, just because of the simple fact that all these videos and stuff is going on and going about. And I sometimes think about that. What are we feeding this AI, right? Because that in reality, right now, as we speak, and I've said this plenty of times to my wife too. I said, if I had the opportunity to take what I have in my mind and put it into a computer where I can live forever, I probably would do that. And I'll give you a great example of this. I always try to tie everything that I do with either religion or something that I've watched, or with history, just because I love history, period. But a good explanation of this is that movie with Johnny Depp called Transcendence, when he took everything that he knew, that he was basically taking himself and putting himself on the network. And it's a really good movie, a really, 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 really good movie. I watched it before this whole AI thing came about. And now you think about what Elon Musk is doing with the Neuralink, right? Think about how fast your research will be able to come to your mind in a matter of just saying, hey, Neuralink, look this up. There's literally websites like archive.gov, sacredtext.com, all these texts that talks about ancient history, the pictographic scripts, the language, the writing systems, and all this other stuff. It would be too easy for you to say to yourself in your head, Neuralink, hey, I need you to translate this cuneiform tablet. And while you're looking through your eyes and it's reading it, it's translating it like that. You remember back in the day, Google was the thing to do for research. You type in what you wanted, as many words or as minimum possible words as possible. You put it in Google, and Google will bring up the top searches on there. 9 times out of 10, people will pick the first, maybe 5 or 10. Maybe some people don't even go past the first link. They click the first one because it's the most advertised one. So they believe in their minds that is the most accurate website. So they'll use information from that. Now, we're getting to a point where everything is happening fast. South Korea actually has the fastest internet on this planet right now. Their internet is fast as hell. Can download shit so quick. I remember you was mentioning how you was in the Air Force. When I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, y'all remember LimeWire and all that other shit, Pirate Bay and all that shit.
Share.
So I used to download movies from there for free. Like it would take a whole day. Like if I wanted to watch a movie from the States, I would, by the time I went to work, I would, tell it to download certain movies, TV shows and shit. I promise you, I downloaded every episode of The Simpsons using that when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, because I love The Simpsons. And it would take a whole day. Now in 2025 to download a movie, it may take maybe 5-10 minutes. In South Korea, it may take like a minute or 30 seconds. When our internet is getting faster, our processing speed for everything is getting faster. Now, when we apply that to our brain, the strongest muscle on our body, they say, I guess, or organ, I should say, they say that, that when you have this Neuralink or whatever, when you can take what you, instead of having to type on the keyboard and going to your computer and turning it on and this, that, and the third, you simply just say in your mind, Neuralink, research this. And most of the time, since it's going to be Neuralink, 9 times out of 10, people are going to use what? Grok. So 9 times out of 10 in the future, people are going to use Grok as their information, their guide. And they're going, a lot of people like to keep records of themselves online. A lot of people use Grok and ChatGPT to make their thumbnails for their YouTube channels and this, that, and the third. So now these AI has a representation of you. They know who you are, not just by what they see, but they know your email. They know your phone number. They know your address. They know what food you like. They even know your secrets that the person that you lay with next to you don't even know, right? Because people are looking up shit that on the internet that might be of curiosity to them that they don't want their spouse to know about or their significant other. So AI is going to know more deeper relationship with humans than that humans have with each other already. Just think about, people are not even asking humans for answers anymore. The quickest way they get their answers now is going to Grok and ChatGPT. So this surveillance that they have on us, and then, I don't know how much of it is. A lot of it could be an idea. You had the idea that, what was it, Eisenhower? I can't remember who it was. The president you was talking about that gave, the permission to go ahead and, quote unquote, abduct people and get this information. My only question is that
Roosevelt,
with all these powerful people out there, and all these people who are supposed to be in the know, they die just as regular as some of us, like with, cancer, burning up, drowning. It makes you think, is this a cover up, or is this a ritual sacrifice that is needed? Because some people make it at a certain age, and those numbers in those ages, or the ages in those numbers, they're sacred. And it's scary that they died at certain times at the same day. And a lot of people say, well, that's that's coincidence. There's 7.7 billion people on this planet, blah, 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 blah. But there aren't 7.7 billion rich people out there with a way to manipulate the world. And if you can manipulate the world the right way, and you're powerful enough to do it, but you just don't know it, they probably won't fuck with you. But if you do know how to use it to your advantage, then that's when they come after you and send, the men in black and all this other crap at you.
The good news is, buddy. Sorry, go ahead.
How connected is this egregore system? Because the people who are doing these sort of performative deaths with all these numbers that line up could be doing that as a form of theater, so that it gets inside your head, so that they can use you as their processing unit, right? You're the one manifesting for them. So that's why they put all these numbers and all these codes and all the things that they do, is because they're using you as their processing unit. So, at some point when you recognize it, you can shut that down. But if you have no idea that that's what's happening, you become an easy target for, malware using your machine, against your will.
This reminds me of a strand of what you've been talking about, Brad, the Gnostics and the Archons, right? The Archons, one of the writings, I believe, the Gnostics that they found was how the Archons were from this solar system, they inferred by the writing, and they hated the sounds of our celebrations and singing.
Right.
And ultimately, they, to your whole point about how they want to come into this dimension and swim and do these wonderful things that we get to do and play. And then there's also this idea that they, as you were talking about language being this archontic manipulation, if you will, the Gnostics talk about the idea of they found that the only way to beat us was to give us their ability, and that really ended up taking away from our abilities, if you will. So the whole notion to communicate is almost like this. We would be more psychic if we weren't so conniving. Right. And so part of this conniving linguistic, opportunistic approach that people have collectively, not individuals, I'm not being judgmental. I just mean to say that there's this whole aspect that we kind of maybe lost intuition, just like you said, just because we're scamming like the Archons.
One thing, we were talking about language. One thing I forgot to mention is the homophones. The homophones are words that, for people who don't know, are words that sound the same but are spelled different, like right with a pen, or turn right, or like a ritual right. And so
weather's a good one.
Yeah, weather. Yeah, I mean, these words sound the same.
I like that.
right? So they're not spelled the same, but they sound the same. So they have the same effect. And so they trick us with that language as well through the use of homophones. I'm going to do an
Brad.
episode of, sir, ma'am.
Brad,
ma'am,
I got one you'll love. Baphomet and bafflement.
Bafflement.
Baphomet and bafflement. Bafflement meaning to stop someone, and Baphomet meaning that god of, transgenders and stuff. It's like the same kind of idea. It's like stopping progression.
Well, I mean, dude, listen, I mentioned that we were matter and I said they were ethereal, but also they're antimatter. And so if we're material, they're anti-material. And if the best example I can give of this is like for people who've seen this show Stranger Things, which by the way, I was an extra on season 3. So that's a fun fact. But
hey, hold on, wait, hold up. Now you gotta tell me where you at because I want to go look.
I was on season 3, episode 6, and there was this little fair scene, and I have like a white hat on and a red beard and a fishing it was like a fishing vest. So, but like with Elle, when Elle was trying to crush the can, what did she do? She wasn't trying to crush the can with her hand. She was trying to go into the antimatter that makes up the inside of the can and crush it from within. It's like a trampoline. Like if you go up underneath a trampoline and stick your hand up on the surface, it looks like a hill, but really there's something pushing that up. So I think that these things exist. This paranormal, these egregores, these entities, they exist to create us, right? So they're like this throwaway energy to create us. And I think that that's what makes them matter than anything is the fact that, like if you think about the frequency, how it has like a hill, we're at the top of that hill and they're underneath it, pushing us up to help create us. And there's a lot of evidence that shows this. There's these things called the Birkeland currents, which are the streams that shoot from the sun to Earth that creates the lightning and all that other stuff. And these things look like double helix DNAs. Well, if you think about like a plasma ball, like you get from Spencer's or somewhere like that, where you put your fingers on it and it has these purple tendrils flying around and stuff like that. That's what a Birkeland current is. Well, the black stuff that's inside of that plasma ball is the antimatter, and it's what it's what helps create that current, that little tendril of purple lightning. And so they exist to create us basically. And I think that this intelligence doesn't sit well with them. So, but yeah, I think again, I'm not worried about any of it because we're in an awakening right now. You mentioned like faster internet speeds and all this stuff and learning things faster. We're also learning information a lot faster and all this stuff. I think we're in an awakening. Where it's some people call it the quickening because things are happening a lot faster than what it seemed like. Weather's a lot weirder now. It seems like time is going by faster. It seems like the years are going by. Like maybe it's because I'm getting older, but dude, I'm just saying it just feels like it's flying.
Brad, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you saw a clock that had just been sitting there for maybe a year actually give you the right time?
I don't know. I never thought about that.
Look around. You're going to find that the bank clocks are off. Sometimes your cell phone is off. Time is fucking weird right now, and nobody's paying attention because we all kind of get there at the same time, but all of these clocks are wrong, and it's weird.
It is weird. Yeah, something's happening and it's happening faster. And I think that that's what these people who have been in charge are afraid of. I think they're building bunkers and stuff, not from a cataclysm. I think they're building bunkers and stuff because they're afraid of us waking up and realizing that we've been fucking tricked for so long and that we've been trapped in this sort of prison planet of, free. I had a lady named Rebecca Keating on my show, and she calls them frequency fences. And I think that's a good term for them. And I just posted an episode about it tonight, right before I came on the show. But that's what it is. It's like a prison planet. It's like a frequency fence that they've kind of put around us to where we can't, again, man, I mean, think about it. All this stuff that's kind of pointing at me right now is frequency. I have a EMF reader, I have a tri-field meter that you could put it up to all this stuff and it's going crazy, And so, and you can stick it to your brain. You can put that meter up to your brain and it'll also go crazy. So that, again, when my son plays Xbox, he plays right up on the TV. And when he gets off of the Xbox, there has to be about 30 minutes before he his energy resets back to a normal level. So something definitely is affecting our brains, and it's because of this electric current that we got running through our walls and everything. We're killing ourselves with this frequency. We're flushing out our ability to remember who we are and the power that we have, the unique power that we have to communicate with each other, and do amazing things in this world. Because we're here to
Well,
create. So
we put all of our emphasis on the five senses, but this is something more than that, because we're actually having to look inside of ourselves while we're so focused on everything that's going on around us to figure out that, hey, maybe we're not right. Maybe we should try to get back into balance. That's a big part of it, is the distractions keep us from achieving those states of harmony.
yes. Yeah, they do. Yeah. But if you think about it like a straight line, if you're walking towards something and then you go, oh, what's this over here? It's a rabbit hole. It takes you off off your spiritual path towards God, and it takes you off on a little toilet bowl flush, right? You kind of get flushed into the paranormal or to the whatever, and you forget to live and be uniquely human and create. And I think we should all avoid. And I use it sometimes. I use AI sometimes. So I'm not perfect with it, I promise you. But I think that we have to get off of that stuff and just remember that we can create. We have this ability to do all of this stuff. And whenever I build websites and take photos and all this, that's what my job is. And whenever I do, I get these little jolts of energy and sometimes chills as well. That literally feels like an invisible hand just flows through me and goes, yep, that was it. It's like a creative jolt of like, oh, that's what I'm here to create. And this feels right. It's like when you do anything that's creative and you just look at it over and over, when you write a book, right? And you just look at it over and you're like, I can't believe I did that. That's that feeling that we should have all the time, where we're creating nonstop. But we don't have that. We've been tricked into going into cubicles and stuff like that, and to thinking that that's the way that life should be. But that is a trap. That all of that stuff is a trap, dude. And I learned that a long time ago, that it's a never-ending cycle. And you're basically like paying for this beautiful house and this car and all this stuff, and you can't ever enjoy it because you're constantly going to work. So I just think we've been trapped into this energy cycle, this endless loop. And we're powering these egregores, what they want to do, and they're kind of controlling and running things, but it's not working anymore. It's wearing off, and we're starting to see more things in the sky, right? I mean, Jesus talked about this in Luke, I believe, where sky monsters were going to come. That's basically what the word translate to is sky monsters. And that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see plasmoids flying in, and New Jersey drones and all this stuff. That's what they are. They're plasmoids, what I mentioned earlier. And we're just able to see that now because we have that ability already. We've just had this frequency fence around us that prevents us from seeing these things and knowing that this world exists around us. So I think that part of that, man, some of this I think is God's design, and then some of it is a prison planet. Some of it is like God's promise to keep us. I told you we're color beings. We're in the rainbow of colors, right? In the visible light. And I think that might be part of God's promise to where the rainbow was mentioned in after the flood, to never flood the earth again. Maybe we're put into this frequency that to protect us from seeing those things. So I think that there is a prison planet, and then I think that there is part of it is probably this is a place where we're uniquely human and we have human experiences, and we're here to learn how to love and all this other stuff. Because that's what most people say when they have near-death experiences. They always say they interact with God, and God always asks them, it's okay. He gives them a life review of everything that ever happened in their lives. And they say, people who come back from near-death experiences say that they felt every pain that they caused someone, and every joy and every emotion that they've ever caused someone. They felt it all at once. And God says, don't worry. Did you learn how to love? And I mentioned this to a friend of mine who had a near-death experience, and he just started crying. He's like, how did you know that, dude? He's like, I've never told anybody that, et cetera. And I said, well, I watch a lot of this. I read a lot of books about it because it's incredibly fascinating to me when people go beyond the veil, that they say the same thing, exact same thing. It's millions of people who've said the exact same thing about learning how to love. And so if this is a school and we're here on a quick coffee break, to have a human experience. One, it's to learn how to love, and I think that's a pretty important thing to do while we're here. But there are entities who are trying to take us off of that path, and maybe by design. I don't know. Maybe that's God's design, because Satan means Hasatan, which is a job title, right? And so his job was to to go into the Garden of Eden and to tempt Adam and Eve. So his job was a job title. This is according to Ed Mabry from the Fate by Reason podcast. And also Vicky Joy Anderson said the same thing. So I'm going by what biblical scholars have said. These are real biblical scholars, not just some dummy from a trailer park. You know what I mean? So
yeah. It's funny you bring that up, because Isaiah 45:7 says, I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create calamity.
right.
I, the Lord, do all these things. So obviously it is part of his plan. It's entertainment for him, possibly. You can't have good without bad. You can't have evil without good. You can't have love without hate. You won't know the difference, right? In reality. It's the Stockholm syndrome is a great example of that. Somebody who's treated fairly wrong for a whole bunch for a very long time still loves or cherishes the individual that does them wrong. It's a mind game, and whoever can control the mind the best is usually the one who's going to be on top. It doesn't mean that you're going to be the richest person, you're most famous, or any of that. But wealth is the wealth begins with being able to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want, not what biggest yacht I have or, the biggest house. That's not wealth. Wealth is because you have to work to constantly have that. We're working for a materialistic type of thing. Who has the fastest car? Who has the biggest truck? Who has the biggest TVs? Remember when them plasma TVs came out? Everybody was talking about, oh man, I got a 42-inch TV. Go around and talk about how you got a 42-inch TV today, and they're going to look at you like you back in the ancient days without no TV, right? Because a 42-inch TV ain't big these days, right? But, back then it was the materialistic of idea of I have to have something better. And then we force ourselves, when we get those items, to indulge ourselves in those items. Like television, you buy a television, you're going to watch all the great TV shows, movies, everything that you possibly can on there, right? You get you a new iPhone, you get you a new Droid or something, you're constantly on there trying to mess with it. You get a computer over a laptop, you're going to spend more time creating things. But then we forget about creation of ourselves. Like you was talking about earlier, we can create things, but we let others create things for us to take our minds away from being creators ourselves. And that's why I think it's great that everybody has a voice these days with these podcasts and so on and so forth, because I've always said it. I can't read every single book out there. There's no way that I can read every single book out there. But what I can do is I can gain as much knowledge as I can from the people around me. And I have to dictate which books are important for me to read based off of suggestions from other people. Like I said earlier, everybody has their own experience. I can't tell you what you've experienced, and you can't tell me what I've experienced. We haven't walked in the same shoes, right? But what we can do is put our minds together and try to understand our experiences. That's why in the Bible, a lot of these kings had people who would interpret their visions and their dreams, because they understand how that side of the world worked better than the individual that was experiencing it. But when you take two of it together and put it to perfection, you'll see that, hey, look, this is how you do it. Meditation. If you got to read, you got to breathe a certain way. You have to sit a certain way. You have to be relaxed. And in some cases, a lot of people will say you don't have to sit a certain way, but you have to sit in a way where it's comfortable for you, right? I can sit in a certain position that might be comfortable to me, but the next person might have back problems and knee problems and can't do that. So they have to adjust fire to that. And in the control, with medication takes away from that too. Because medication would take you and put you in a realm of, okay, I'm masking whatever problem I'm going through. No difference than alcohol and drugs. That's why, we're not supposed, everything in moderation is supposed to be okay for us. It's when we go outside that moderation that takes away from our abilities to be who we want to be, and as a godlike individual.
Yeah, 100%, man. I agree. Yeah, we're powerful beings that can do anything. We just need to go out and experience and live life. And once you do that, man, I swear people listen, doors will just open left and right. And you'll never have to worry about money because it just comes somehow. And that sounds completely insane to people who go to work every day. He's like, money doesn't just come. Yeah, it does. It's weird. It will literally show up on the ground in front of you sometimes. It will literally be all of a sudden you get a check in the mail, and then you were supposed to get 15 years ago, and it's like, oh, we forgot to send this check. And it's like all of a sudden it happens like that. It's amazing, wonderful thing to do when you start just opening yourself up to God and letting him lead you, letting him lead the way. And then the Holy Spirit gets excited and starts giving you angel numbers. You start getting synchronicities and all this other stuff. And you start seeing butterflies following you around and all these different things that happen that are unique to you, that there are unique ways of God communicating with you through the Holy Spirit. So once you start opening yourself up to that, man, it's amazing what happens. And, that's why like I said, it's always weird how, I'm a Christian, but I've never been like a Bible thumper or anything like that, but it all roads lead to God, and Christ is is leading the way. So sorry, Nick.
No, you're good. You're good. Headless or Ethan or Lisa, you guys want to say anything before it's already after 2 hours. We might start to wrap it up, maybe. Unless there was anything else you wanted to add, Brett.
No, I mean, I've said a lot, man. I talk too much
No,
sometimes.
you're fine. No, you're fine. You're fine. No, that was a lot of shit. There was a lot of shit in this show. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I guess we'll probably wrap it up if you don't mind.
Sure.
Brad, you want to actually we'll go back around the room real quick. Lisa, since you weren't here when we started off before, wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself. What is going on?
Damn it, I thought that I was gonna slip out of that one. Just kidding. I want to thank you, Brad, for an amazing presentation. I took a bunch of notes. You pretty much brought up a lot of things that I will definitely dive into and look further into. So thank you so much for that very, very interesting talk. Thank you, fellow rejects, for having me on and letting me interrupt when I do. And the only thing I'd like to plug is the occultresearchinstitute.org. Some of the rejects contribute to that website in literary form, Ethan being one of them on the show. And check us out on occultresearchinstitute.org. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Do you want to plug like your Twitter in case anybody wants to get in contact or anything?
Twitter, Solis Lisa.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And Tyrone, my man. No, thank you, Lisa. Tyrone.
Hey, great conversation, man. Great conversation. You know your stuff, and I'm very happy to be here to hear what you have said. Everything that you can find on me is on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. I have a YouTube, Rumble, Twitter. I have all kinds of things, but you'll find all that through my website. I also have a bestseller, Journey Through the Origins of History. And I got to give a shout out to Ethan's book, Fourth Initiation, because I'm just almost finished with it. It's a great book. I've read his meditation. So we talked a lot about meditation today. And I highly recommend anybody that's interested in meditation or is on their first journey through meditation or even an expert in it. Ethan's book is a great read for that. So yeah, check those books out.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Nick,
I appreciate you joining us.
Nick,
Yes.
Nick, can I interrupt? Since Tyrone brought it up, also Ethan's book on the marijuana and the prohibition of divine feminine. We did an episode on this. Please check out that episode. I think it was a hell of an episode. I had never considered to be linked like this. Great read, great episode. Just kind of want to give a shout out to Ethan.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to get that one now too, Ethan, next. Because, man,
I hope you like it. I'm so humbled by you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. And
actually, Ethan, you go next. Let everybody know what's up.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I'm just humbled by you guys' attention and support, and honored to be down with the Occult Rejects. Brad, that was epic. Thank you for bringing such cool insight and your experience and your inspiration. I appreciate that. We all appreciate that. Yeah, I have writing available at all the usual sources, and I'm on all the usual social media. More articles to come on Occult Research Institute. Appreciate you guys immensely. And on Sunday, Headless and I and Ricardo doing the trialogue. Don't forget. It's been really fun.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead, Ellis.
Well, you can find me at Headless Giant on X and on YouTube and on Instagram. And if you have any sort of occult, paranormal / dreams that you want to send our way so we can read them, it's headlessgiantpodcast@gmail.com. And tomorrow we're going to be doing hands, the occult symbol of the hand. And that's going to be a big one. So definitely check that out. We're going to have a lot of research, a lot of different associations all tied up together. It's a big topic, but I think the occult symbol of the hand is very important, that I think is lacking in a lot of ways. And the trialogues is on Sunday, so definitely check that out. I'll be there with Ethan and Ricardo. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Yes. Thank you for plugging the hand show. Brad, before I let you plug your show and all your stuff, just so I don't forget, and since nobody's, still people in the chat, fingers crossed, tomorrow, check it out, 11 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I've gotten pretty much confirmed, even checked to make sure we're on the right times and everything. Ashton Forbes should be coming on the Occult Rejects tomorrow. So check it out, 11 o'clock in the morning if you're around. So, yeah. All right. Now, Brad, please let everybody know where they can find your amazing stuff.
Listen, first of all, you guys are extremely intelligent, and y'all sometimes it's hard when you're talking about all this stuff to get people to participate in the conversation. Sometimes it's just people listening and they go, "Oh, that's interesting." But you guys were back and forth.
Feel like you're like talking to a wall, right? I know what you mean.
Yeah. But you guys were back and forth. So thank y'all very much for making it easier on me to bring forth some of my ideas. And by the way, man, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm a dummy. I literally failed physics and all this stuff in high school. I barely graduated high school. I do have a college degree now, proudly, but maybe not proudly, I guess, but because it's kind of an indoctrination. But I did work hard for it. So, but I don't know much. I'm not an expert on anything. It's just my ideas of things, and I think that sharing these ideas is what people used to do a long time ago in different forms. Maybe not on a screen like this, like we're doing, but we're able to connect with each other across the world, across states, and all this other stuff. So this is really cool. I wish we could get together and have a powwow like this, I guess you could say, like with everybody, and feel that energy flowing between us. But I guess this will have to do for now, and if you get a chance and you go to conferences and things like that, please go follow these. If these guys are at conferences, please go meet up with them and hang out with them, because you'll get a totally different energy than what you'll get from watching the show. And thank you to the chat. I see I've been watching the all the comments for the last couple hours. It's been funny to I've been popping in. I see some funny things happening, and I'm
yeah, some wild ones.
But yeah, I mean, this is a big audience, man. I don't have a YouTube audience yet. I am gonna start putting all my videos on YouTube. So if you guys don't mind, please follow me on YouTube. I promise I'll put 4 or 5 episodes up in the next couple of days. It's just a lot of work. I'm just one guy trying to do all this stuff. So I'm constantly putting out audio, and audio is killing it. But if you guys can follow me on YouTube and Rumble, that would help me out greatly. So and also, if you like everything I'm saying here, please give me a follow on Spotify and Apple at the Awaken Podcast, and give it a thumbs up. Give it a 5-star review if you don't mind. Those reviews help me get around the algorithm. They help put me in front of thousands of more listeners. So comments, reviews, all positive things will definitely help me out a lot. And also helps me book some pretty interesting guests, because when they do look at comments and they do look at ratings and all this stuff before they come on your show. So please do that for me. I really appreciate it. And give the Occult Rejects and all of them a follow as well, and buy their books, because this is how we pay the bills. If you want to keep getting content like this, please support by buying books and making donations and things like that. It really matters a lot to us as content creators. I wish I made more money. I wish I had a whole big audience like this I could ask for donations and stuff like that.
And I hardly do too, which is horrible.
But I'm grateful, and I'm grateful to the listeners, man, for sure. So thank y'all for giving me the time and the platform. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. That was an awesome chat. Like I knew once I went through like your Rolodex of episodes, and just even from the stuff I saw you post on Instagram, I was like, this guy's got, like, I think I had even told you we'll definitely have a few talks, because
yeah, of course,
you have a plethora of like different of topics and things that you're into that we are too. So it was an awesome chat. I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, again, please, people, go check out his stuff. Go follow him on his YouTube. Go check out his audio. And for the audio listeners on this show, yeah, go leave us a review too, please. I never say that stuff, but that shit actually does help. If you leave 5 stars in a review, it does kind of put you into the algorithm to get like a little advertised. So thank you. Yeah, try to do that if you can. And all the listeners in the chat, that's what's up. There was a lot of people there from the beginning to the end. I appreciate that. And there's some interesting stuff in there. There's always some interesting stuff in there. But thank you all. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.